What's up and welcome back to the Chris Gates Fitness Podcast. Thanks so much as always for joining me today. And in this episode, we're answering another client question, which is a really good one and a really common one. Today, we're going to be answering, if I'm not sore after a workout, does that mean it wasn't effective? You know, like if you work out, feel like it was a good workout, feel like you pushed yourself pretty hard, and then the next day you wake up and you feel nothing at all. Does that mean maybe you didn't push yourself enough, or you should have gone harder, or the workout wasn't effective, or you're not doing the right exercises? We're going to break all that down and make it as simple and easy to understand as possible, because this is one that is a common misconception, actually. A lot of people commonly think that, well, I'm not sore, so it means something I am doing needs to change. And oftentimes, that's actually not the case. So we're going to talk about what soreness means in your body, what it doesn't mean, which might be just as important, and really how to gauge progress so that you know that what you're doing is effective, that it's appropriate, and that it's moving you in the right direction. So lots of good stuff to dive into in this one. I hope you find it helpful. And if you haven't already, I hope that you subscribe to the podcast, okay? So you can find the podcast anywhere that you listen to them: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, iHeartRadio, all the places, right? Video episodes of the podcast also go on my YouTube channel, and in all these places, social media as well. Just look for Chris Gates Fitness. You'll find me there. Hit follow, hit subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And also, mentioned this last week, I have a little bit of an update here, but I do have a massive, massive announcement coming, okay? So that's something to pay attention to here. At the end of August, I have something massive coming. And on August 11th, I'm going to tell you what that massive thing is, okay? So that's like a week away. There's not a lot of time until the massive thing is coming. And if you are a busy parent who is looking to maybe get back on track after a wild and wacky summer, which the summers normally are, and you want to, lose some weight, build muscle, improve your overall health and fitness so that you can dominate in your career and in your family life and just be the best possible version of yourself for all those people who are asking for it. Oftentimes fall is a great opportunity to kind of get back on track. Kids go back to school. You develop a bit more of a routine that you lost in the summer. And so we're going to try and capitalize on that. And I have something special for you that you're not going to want to miss. So August 11th, there will be an announcement. I would highly recommend that you are following me on social media so you catch that. You could also subscribe to my mailing list. They always hear about it first. So if you go to my website, chrisgatesfitness.com/newsletter, you can sign up there. And like I said, you'll get the announcement first and be able to know ahead of everybody else what's coming. So that is on the way. But let's dive into the topic of the day, right? Again, which is, if I'm not sore after a workout, does that mean it wasn't effective? And let's talk about what soreness actually is first, okay? So soreness is obviously a response from the body, feedback from the body after you do some type of exercise or some type of training. You'll hear this term called DOMS, which stands for delayed onset muscle soreness. That is the name, that is the word that actually describes what you're experiencing when you do a workout and then later on that day or the next morning you feel sore. DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. And there's a number of things that contribute to why you feel that soreness. First and foremost, like when you go into the gym, especially if you're lifting weights, you are causing stress for your body, right? You're putting stress onto your muscles. And what ultimately happens is that we create micro tears in your muscle tissue that needs to be repaired. So some of that delayed onset muscle soreness, some of those DOMS that you experience is going to be because of the micro tears that you create by training hard. Some of that soreness is also soreness that you'll feel in your ligaments and your tendons if you're doing exercises that are new or novel, things you haven't maybe done in a while. So oftentimes, and I tell my clients this all the time, when we dive into a new block of training, normally means we're doing a bunch of new exercise variations, right? We're starting something new to help them progress towards their goal. And with my client programs, we structure things purposefully where we do training blocks that kind of follow each other, and each one builds on the previous one. So when we get into a new training block, I often tell them like, hey, week one, that's normally where the highest levels of soreness and fatigue happen, because we're doing a lot of stuff in this training block that either you haven't done in a while or maybe you've never done them before. So oftentimes in like weeks 1 to 2 of the training block, we don't push it super hard because there's going to be a lot of soreness simply because they're doing new and novel things. And then once they kind of get past that introductory period, then when the soreness is more manageable, then we can push it a little bit harder. And that soreness is not because they trained super hard or trained super effective. It doesn't mean that the workouts were good, even though I do think the workouts that I build for my clients are good. It just means that they're doing new things, right? So there's one example right away of, hey, soreness maybe doesn't mean what you think it means. And then once we get past that period of time where they do have the higher levels of soreness in their workouts and we kind of like normalize things and move deeper into the training block, they actually experience less soreness as they train harder, as they lift heavier, as they do more reps. So it's interesting how this all plays out. And those are great examples in real life of how, okay, interpreting soreness is maybe a foolish indicator of whether or not you're doing things right. So oftentimes, just new or novel things that you're doing are going to cause soreness because they are new or novel. Higher volumes can cause more soreness if it's you pushing volume higher. And by that, I mean like doing more sets for different muscle groups or different exercises. And again, that's because like if you were doing 3 sets and now you're doing 5 or 6 sets of a muscle group, that's twice the workload. So that's going to cause a little bit of additional muscle soreness as well. And then eccentric movements. And by eccentric, I don't mean like crazy, like eccentric. I don't mean like, oh, wild and crazy stuff you're doing in the gym. What I mean is the eccentric portion of the exercises you're doing. So let me break this down. For any exercise that you do, there's a concentric portion of it and an eccentric portion of it. We could also just simplify it and say the up part or the down part. So the concentric is when you're actually contracting your muscle. So if we're thinking about a bicep curl, when you're curling up and squeezing your bicep. Then the eccentric would be when you're lowering the weight, the down part of the rep that you're doing. And when you're doing eccentric parts of the reps, when you're lowering the weight, that's actually when you're strongest. If you think about like any weight that you could lift, if it's a bicep curl, if I put a heavy barbell or heavy dumbbells in your hands, you could probably lower them under control, at least a little bit, right? But those same dumbbells, if they're like 60-pound dumbbells, you probably can't curl them up. We're stronger at lowering. We're stronger at the eccentric portion of an exercise than we are the concentric. So if you're doing exercises that involve heavy weights that you're lowering, that can also cause a lot of soreness as well. But, breaking all this down, DOMS and soreness and where it comes from is hopefully helping you understand how to start to interpret the soreness that you feel. Soreness is a stress response, essentially, from the body. It's feedback from the body that you're getting. It's not necessarily a marker of progress, and that's important to internalize and understand. So with that information in mind, probably helps you understand like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be chasing soreness. And a lot of people do that because soreness can be misleading. You might be sore after one of those new or novel exercises, even with light weight, right? Because you're in week 1 of a new training block and it's all new. You might not be sore after a workout routine that you've been doing for 7 to 8 weeks, even if you're training really, really hard and you're lifting heavier than you've ever lifted before, but that's because it's not new. It's not novel anymore, right? But you're stronger. You're lifting heavier weight than you've ever done before. You're doing higher volumes, higher intensity. It doesn't mean that you're not getting anything out of it because you've progressed to this point, right? So we can't use soreness as an indicator, and we can't chase soreness because it's going to take you out of the framework of things that are actually working. It's not correlated with muscle growth. It's not correlated with fat loss, certainly, right? And chasing soreness can lead to you doing such high intensities or such high volumes or constantly switching up your exercise program to feel sore that you're going to lack efficiency in what you're doing with your workouts. You're going to struggle to recover from it, potentially. And you could run into burnout, which that leads to quitting and that leads to everything stopping. And so if you're chasing soreness and it's just going to lead to you stopping and not exercising anymore, then, hey, that's a foolish thing to do. Because I say this all the time, the worst thing you can do is quit. That's the only way to guarantee that you don't make progress towards your goal is to quit. So we need to do things that make sure you don't do that. And so since soreness cannot really indicate to us whether a workout was good or bad, successful or unsuccessful, what does indicate an effective workout? Progressive overload primarily is going to be the thing that I value the most as a coach. if I'm seeing you doing a workout routine, and especially like if we're working on it together, you're going to be getting well-rounded workout routines, well-rounded strength training program. And so we know that your workout routine is in a good spot. And then if we see you incrementally adding a little bit of weight week to week or doing a few more reps week to week, and we can see that from week 1 to 2 to 4 to 6 to 8, the workload has consistently gone up just little by little. Those numbers are what you can rely on to tell you if you are or are not making progress, regardless of the soreness that you feel, regardless of the fatigue that you feel. If the numbers are going up, and this is important, this is something that I couldn't wrap my mind around early in my years as a lifter, and it led to me passing up on a lot of progress I could have made because for some reason I would just trick myself to think like, yeah, the numbers are going up, but like I'm not really progressing. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? If you are able to do a couple more reps week to week, month to month, if you're able to lift a little bit more weight week to week, month to month, and do that consistently over an extended period of time, there's quite literally no other way to explain why that's happening other than your body is adapting successfully, you are getting stronger, you are building muscle, you're improving your body composition, you are doing what you want to do, right? There's no other way to describe it. There's no other way to explain it if the numbers continue to go up. So obviously you want to make sure you're tracking what you're doing. And I talk about that a lot. So hopefully you're already doing that. But you want to track what you're doing and then just don't feel like you have to add 20 pounds in a week. Don't feel like you have to add 10 reps in a week. But if you can just add a little bit, 1 to 2 reps week to week, that adds up to being something massive over 8 weeks. If you can add 5 pounds every 2 or 3 weeks, that adds up to being 15 or 20 over the course of 8 weeks. It's massive, right? So those little increases over time consistently are really what you should be looking for. Consistency across weeks, consistency across months. And then, if you can do that, that's really what's going to indicate if your workouts are effective. And if you find that you're not able to do that, then that's where you got to zoom out and look at what you're doing and, make sure that your training program is well-rounded, that it is structured appropriately. Obviously, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into why you're able to add reps and add weight and progressively overload with your lifestyle habits. Your nutrition is going to come into play. Are you eating enough calories to allow your body to recover? Are you getting enough protein to allow your body to recover? Are you getting enough sleep to allow your body to recover? So there's a lot of other, elements that come into it. But generally speaking, that's from a training perspective, the one to pay the most attention to. Now, soreness, we basically spent, I don't know, how many minutes are we? Like 12, 13 minutes here ragging on soreness. And for the most part, I would say it's not really a good indicator of progress. When can soreness be informative, though? Because it can. You can use soreness as an indicator for certain things, okay? The first thing that I would identify as like, oh, soreness is actually useful to identify X, Y, or Z. If you are doing a workout where you are targeting a muscle group or several muscle groups with the exercises you're doing, especially in the early going of doing that workout program, if you then the next day feel soreness in those muscles that you trained yesterday, it's an indicator that you effectively targeted those muscles. And that is helpful to know because there are some exercises you can do, and oftentimes this happens with compound exercises, and often this can happen with beginner lifters if you're not super advanced or experienced with strength training, where if you're doing a row, sometimes you could be rowing with improper form and technique and feel the row in your shoulders or feel the row in your arms. And the next day, your back isn't sore at all, but your biceps are sore or your shoulders are sore. And it's like, okay, that is an indicator of like, hey, we need to dial things back and focus on form and technique to make sure that you're able to figure out how to do these exercises the right way. Soreness can help us identify that, right? So it is something that can help from that perspective. And then also the other thing that stands out to me is like, soreness can help us potentially uncover whether you are recovering properly or not. And so if we understand that like in the first couple of weeks of doing something new, you're going to have soreness because it's new. But as you continue to do it, as you continue to plug away at that workout program, that workout routine, and you continue to feel high levels of soreness, that might mean like, hey, we're not getting enough sleep. We're not getting enough protein. We're not giving your body the resources it needs to actually recover. sometimes soreness crops up and tells us that there's a recovery issue as well, okay? So that's something else that you could use to help soreness identify some gaps in what you're doing. But again, at the end of the day, it's not going to be like a, hey, my workout wasn't good, it's time to change everything up type of thing. That's just not how it works. So if you want to structure your training and have it set you up for long-term progress, we're not using soreness as an indicator, right? We're using the numbers. We're focusing on progressive overload and training performance. And then if you're not progressively overloading, if you're not seeing your performance go in the direction you want to, that's when we zoom out, potentially use soreness as an indicator or a data point to help us identify issues, but more so just like analyze the entire big picture to figure out what's going on. So at the end of the day, lack of soreness does not mean lack of results. We want to train to see progress. We don't want to train to feel punishment or feel pain. That's not a healthy relationship with fitness, in my opinion. And the soreness is going to come and go as you try new things, do new things, cycle in and out of different programs that you're doing. But at the end of the day, it is normally not something that's going to be super helpful for you to make sure you're doing the right things at the right time. So hopefully that is helpful. And yeah, as always, I appreciate you joining me for another podcast episode. So thank you so much. I hope this was helpful. Again, make sure you're subscribed. And again, August 11th, announcement is coming. Make sure you stay tuned. And I'm super excited for what's to come. So thanks again. I will talk to you soon.